Welcome to Here, the podcast where you get a VIP behind-the-scenes look at the broad collective of music venues and festivals that make Buffalo the music destination it is. On this episode, we visit the iconic Town Ballroom. Initially called the Town Casino in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the Town Ballroom on Main Street hosted legends such as Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole, and Miles Davis. In the following decades, the building would change ownership multiple times. Nearly 20 years ago, hoping to establish a premier concert venue in Buffalo, Artie Kwitchoff and Donny Kutzbach of Funtime Presents decided to restore the old girl to her former glory. They've since booked major artists like Tyler the Creator, Bleachers, St. Vincent, Odd Future, Casey Musgraves, and more. We sit down with Donnie and Artie as they share the story of transforming this iconic venue. We also visit with Max Kerman, the lead singer of the Arkells, to find out what it's like to play here. And finally, we meet Town Ballroom superfan Jim Lemoy, who has officially obtained VIP status, attending more than 400 concerts and counting at the venue. Donnie and Artie, there's so many great stories about the building, but there's also a history with you two in the music industry and in Buffalo. What made you decide to buy a venue, and why did you choose this spot?
I had been on the road. I had toured enough around the country, and it really bothered me that in Buffalo there really was not a true live music room for that next generation of bands.
Yeah,
there were the bands that played the cover bands, or the kind of the pop metal bands that played out in the suburbs. There were blues rooms, but there wasn't that great live music room where you would say, I saw that band,
Right.
There had been a building that previous promoters had used, an old theater that has since been torn down. Mm-hmm. And then there was really nothing in downtown Buffalo. So you'd go to Columbus, and you'd go to the Newport Music Hall, right? And you'd be like, oh, this is great. It's in Columbus,
Yeah.
You go to Cincinnati, and there'd be Bogarts. Places that are still open today. So I saw all these buildings, and then I came back to Buffalo. Every time I'd come off the road, I'd say I got to find that. I've got to find that. I've got to find that room. And we would use rooms over the years.
Yeah, for
years. We would just go into other rooms.
But it was when Sphere opened, and the owner wasn't totally sure what he was doing, and he was kind of throwing everything against the wall. And we started doing shows here, and we realized it works well for what we do. And then we kind of ended up with the opportunity to take it over when he wanted to move and kind of move on from it. And
well, what we realized from doing shows in other people's rooms, we knew how we wanted to run things. We knew how we wanted them to be presented.
Yeah.
We knew how we wanted much more control.
Yep.
Because we felt it was really important, we took it seriously from day one, the presentation and the fan experience and everything that that gets talked about. We would talk about it.
What was a band or artist that you can think of that you said, oh, wow, we've got something here, or we did this?
I remember here at Town Ballroom, I'll tell Donnie, we had the Jonas Brothers as an opening act for the Veronicas. Now, the Veronicas were supposed to be a big, big deal, right? They were going to be this big deal. And the Jonas Brothers were just the opening act. And I didn't stay for the show. I went home that night. Donnie covered the show. The next day I said, how was the show? And Donnie, to his credit, he said, that opening act is going to be you.
big Joe Bro fan from day one.
It's really funny though. He said they did this whole prayer thing with their father beforehand. It's
not rock and roll.
Yeah, it was not rock and roll. But boy, they're really good. And over 18 years, I think people who have come here for this long, they see the things that we've done. Mm-hmm. And we tried to do things in a manner that people just come in and go, oh, this is different.
By virtue of that, we still consider this very much a work in progress. We are constantly changing things. If we realize things didn't work, we might have been doing it one way for 10, 15 years. We're still going back and saying, wait, we should maybe have done this a totally different way for years. And it happens all the time.
What do you think makes the Town Ballroom a destination club, music club, that people from other areas feel like they want to travel to and see shows at?
I think it's the intimacy. I think it's the intimacy of the room, even though, again, we always talk about it. It's a big room, but it's a room where 1,000 people feel like 400.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This room is unique, that the whole front bar, when you come in, most places, almost every place of this size, you're in the room all night. So by the end of the night, your ears are ringing. You've got kind of ear fatigue. You've been talking over the PA all night long. It becomes, kind of exhausting.
Yeah.
Where here, what we loved about the room when we first started doing shows here, we were like, it's really nice if we can figure out how to connect the front room to the back room so that people feel connected, so they don't feel like that they have to rush to the back room, or that they can go to the back and then get some relief and come up to the front.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this building unique.
The artwork now that you've added to the front room, that's a new thing. What was the decision behind that artwork and the groups that you selected?
I think the thing that I love about it is that we can change it. It's the kind of thing, like, we look at it as kind of a gallery. So everything that's up there right now is not going to stay there forever. And it's not to say it won't come back at some point. And as artists come and play multiple times, we change the date, we add the date.
We add them, yeah.
But the idea is that we can constantly move it out, change it up, put somebody different, put a different artist there.
What are some of your wows and favorites? Because there has to be a piece of you in there.
It's funny. Lately, I've noticed more people looking at like the Casey Musgraves one.
Yeah, because she's
out playing arenas.
Because she's out playing arenas now. So they kind of look at it and they're like, Casey Musgraves was here. What? The Jack Harlow one, and Mac Miller.
Because again, people don't realize that he was here. And then Janelle Monáe, people are like, Janelle Monáe played here? She hasn't really toured much.
Donnie and I are both partial to the war on drugs. Donnie's friends with the guys, but we're both huge fans, right? Like we both, that's one of those shows that like we stop everything we're doing and tell everybody, don't bug us during the show.
Yeah.
Figure out whatever you need. There's a question, figure it out. Or we just let us watch the show.
I could sit and listen to thousands of stories from Donnie and Artie. I really wanted a tour. This building holds 80 years of live entertainment history. It was UB's Pfeiffer Theater, then it was Sphere, and when Donnie and Artie took over, it became Town Ballroom. There are hauntingly legendary stories about the club. So I don't know if the hair is standing up on my arms because we're in a basement or because this area is really haunted, but what is this area that we're standing in right now?
So we call this Capone's Corner because, as legend has it, Al Capone would play cards here. Al Capone obviously probably is one of those people who always won too, whether he lost or not. But part of the reason that he would be here, as legend has it, is because there's a stairway that goes right up to Washington Street, which is now our back entrance where all the bands load in and load out. But you could have easy access if somebody decided to raid at the front door.
Oh, and they would just escape out the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also another area that had a tunnel that led out to Main Street, that led to the tunnel that used to go down Main Street that connects a lot of the buildings. So a lot of the buildings on Main Street are connected, and they used to be prior to the subway going in. So there used to be a hole in the wall that you could supposedly get out quickly if you
navigate the tunnels, allegedly, you could get all the way to the lakefront.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Was that part of the bootlegger history?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They used to have allegedly.
Because it was a speakeasy at one time.
As we made our way through the rest of the basement and up to the dressing rooms behind the stage, they shared another legendary story about the origin of their time with the club. Before you took over Ballroom, Town Ballroom, made it Town Ballroom, there is a story, though, about this area, about an artist that played here when it was the Sphere, right? And that you guys had booked?
Yeah. So we had booked Patti Smith. We'd been doing a bunch of shows here, and we got the opportunity to do Patti Smith when she was in town. She was doing a political event, and Artie and I, she was kind of already a patron saint to us.
Yeah.
We showed up that day, and the first thing I did, met Patty. It was incredible. It's like she's this kind of like talisman. She's somebody who just knows things and gets it. And she's very spiritually attuned. And she said, "This room's got a lot of ghosts." Again, this is before we were in the business of telling ghost stories.
Yeah.
We didn't know a lot about this building. We were kind of just coming in and
It was
doing
2004.
Yeah.
It was 2004, before we took over the building. Yeah.
And she said, "There's a lot of spirits here. I can feel them." And she said right to me, and I had only met her half an hour before, and she said, "You need to be here. You need to be the caretaker here." This is Patty Smith telling me this. And I was like, wow. And I was already so overwhelmed.
Sure.
That it was that thing, and then it stuck with me. And then not long later, we got the opportunity to take the building over, and that was stuck with me as Patty Smith was the one who told us that.
She kind of put it out into the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you don't say no to Patty Smith.
Well,
So you were in that. At that
Well, I mean,
point.
our 18-year-old selves were like, "Oh my God, I'm talking to Patty Smith and I'm going to say something stupid." So we just kind of like nodded our heads a lot. And yeah,
And that's why she's the patron.
on the front wall.
That's why we had Philip Burke
Yeah.
do a image of her that we put on the front wall, along with Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
There's a lot of artists we could have put on that on the front of the building, but that was the one that we both mutually agreed.
Yeah.
It has to be Patty.
I'm definitely familiar with what it feels like to be in the crowd for a Town Ballroom concert, but on this exclusive tour, I was able to see what it feels like for an artist on stage.
So this is what an artist sees when he walks onto the stage. And what makes the room unique is that most rooms of this size are kind of long and one level flat. And when we redid this room, we were really careful to put the tiers and design them all in a way that if the artist is on stage, they can literally see everybody in the room. You can see people's faces. Like literally you can see a person, if that person's like looking at them like, "Really, this is it? This is your show?" They'll know it. I mean, you can't hide. You can't. So again, it's unique for rooms of this size.
There is an energy in this room. And this is where the tour ends, where all of the magic happens.
They still want to show you around.
Thank you guys. Thanks for spending time with us. This is one of my favorite rooms.
We love having you.
I love it.
Thanks so much.
I have seen so many shows at Town Ballroom, but one of my favorite bands to see there has a particularly strong connection to this venue and to Buffalo, the Arkells. They play all over the place, but Max Kerman, lead singer, was able to join me via Zoom to chat about why he loves the Town Ballroom so much.
Max, it's so good to see you and hear from you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
We couldn't do any segment about the Town Ballroom without talking to you.
Mm.
You're a staple.
Well, we've had a lot of amazing memories of the Town Ballroom, and in part, it's the venue itself and the way it's shaped, and the sight lines and the history of it, but also it's the people that work there and put on shows. So when those two things come together, it usually turns into a special place.
What can you tell us about your first show at Town Ballroom? Do you remember?
I do. And at this point in our career, I have a hard time remembering specific shows. And I don't really care to, but I do remember the Buffalo show, the first time we played there. We were supposed to be first of three opening for Tokyo Police Club. They were headlining the show. And it was the beginning of our big American tour with Tokyo Police Club. And we got hung up at the border. And this is before, now we're a lot more organized, but I think we just didn't give ourselves enough time to get through. And inevitably, the U.S. Border Patrol pulled us over and asked us a bunch of hard questions and made us sit there for a long time. And we weren't going to make it in time, not only for sound check, but for the show itself. And by the time we got through, if we were supposed to be on stage at 7 o'clock, it was about 6:45, you know, coming from the bridge. And Donny, who runs the joint, told the second band they have to go on first because there's no way Arkells aren't playing this show. And it was because of Donny, we were able to play the show, and we went on second. This is the only time on the entire tour that we played second. and it was all because he cared. And I think people who run live music businesses, the best ones that do it, just care a lot, and they really genuinely love the music, and that's the way we've always felt about Donny and his crew at the Town Ballroom.
Now you are playing arenas now, but you will still come and play a Town Ballroom show.
Yeah. I mean, we play lots of different kinds of shows. We're lucky that there's some bigger ones, that are like in arenas in Canada. But for us, it's always about, people ask, like, what's the best venue you've ever played? What's the best show you've ever played? And it's always about the vibe of the room, and I think there's some shows where you play to 100 people and it's amazing. And sometimes you can play to 10,000 people and the vibe's just kind of off and you're not feeling great on stage. But the one consistent thing about the Town Ballroom is that the vibe is always kind of correct. It's just like, I think there's obviously people traveling from different cities to come to the show. And there's just, I don't know, there's something about the history of music in the walls of that place where it feels very worn in, and it feels like a place that like respects music and respects, live performers and songwriters who are telling their stories. And
you have a great relationship with Buffalo in and of itself, probably from performing at Town Ballroom. Does Donny take you around? What are the behind?
Oh, of course. I mean, we always go out for dinner with Donny, and Eric and Tim and Artie and the whole crew. And they always show us the newest hot spots. And it's fun. Last time we played, we've done a couple like double header or triple header weekends at the Town Ballroom. And it's fun walking around during the day and people are hollering at us outside their window, like, Arkells, let's go. And, I've also been to Buffalo, obviously, for Bills games. Our drummer, Tim, lives across the bridge in Fort Erie. So he's over in Buffalo all the time. So, yeah, we definitely like to stretch out. It's not just like a get in, get out situation. It's like, and, even as a kid, I went to Buffalo Bison's games with my dad. So we've been going to Buffalo for a very long time.
Yeah, and the fans definitely love you here. They like to claim you as their own.
Yeah, we are. We're basically a Buffalo band.
Well, and with the Disco Loadout coming out, it was first tested in Buffalo, right?
Yeah, so we realized that we had this pretty deep collection of covers that we've played over the years. Because usually each show we like to throw in a cover, but when you're in a band that's been touring for like 15 years, you end up having a lot in your back pocket. So after we played the Outer Harbor in Buffalo last summer, we said, what if we threw another show afterward, like starting at midnight, and we call it Disco Loadout? And for our viewers, a disco loadout is an expression that is sort of an industry expression, and it means when you pull up to a venue, sometimes you find out that there's another show happening afterward, and you're forced to load your gear through the disco. Usually it's like a DJ or a cover band. So we're like, you know what, we're just going to play all the songs that a DJ or a cover band would play. So we tested in Buffalo, and it went great. It was really fun. We did everything from Marvin Gaye to Hall & Oates, but also like Sum 41 and Blink 182. And we're like, there's something here. So we recorded a lot of those songs for real. And the vinyl is coming out May 17th. It'll be available on streaming then too. Yeah,
people were very excited to see that. People, as I will throw myself into that category, because you want the versions that we heard the Arkells play. And we thought we'd never get it back.
The good thing is this is volume 1. So there should be a volume 2 and a volume 3 eventually. This is what I've honestly told people. I always say, especially if you're in Hamilton, I say, if you have a chance to see a band at somewhere at a venue in Toronto, or they're playing the Town Ballroom, just go to the Town Ballroom. It'll just be a way better experience. So that's usually the case. And that's what I'd say. I said, just go, make a night out of it, get a hotel. There's lots of hotels that are in walking distance, and tie one on. And last call seems to be like 3 or 4 a.m. in Buffalo. It's insane.
Yeah, it is. Now, I know you mentioned earlier about sightlines, and I know one of the things that the venue really prides themselves on is that people on stage can see the crowd. You're very interactive with the crowd. So do you notice that when you're performing?
Oh, of course. And it's also, it's tiered in a way that it feels like the audience is on top of you. It's like the perfect size pit, but there's not like a bad seat in the house. And if you're short, you can still see, it's just kind of perfect. It's all there.
And you can see everybody's faces from the stage.
Yeah, it's really nice. Just because they're so close to you. It's great.
Wow, which could be a blessing or a curse for some.
No, it's always good. We got a good looking crowd.
Yeah. Well, and you interact well, and they're usually happy, so usually fine. Is there anything you can tell us about future plans for Buffalo?
We're always cooking up something. You know, we have a Buffalo show circled. We're not sure exactly when we're able to announce it, but you'll hear about it. I'm sure. You know, I also like Buffalo's a small town. Gossip gets around quick, so people find out pretty soon, even before we've announced it.
People outside of the area coming in, what makes Buffalo a music destination?
Well, it really just kind of comes down to the people who live there, who go to the shows, and the people who throw on the shows. And I think that's like the difference, especially when you think about smaller communities and the scenes that exist in a smaller community. It's really just the people. If you take away a few key people, sometimes the scene doesn't really exist in the same way anymore. So the fact that, you know, Donny and Artie have been throwing shows for as long as they have in Buffalo, out of pride, out of passion, you know, for putting on concerts, that's the difference. So, and you can feel it when you go to a town. You know, it's like when somebody there actually cares and is doing it the right way, versus when there's not. And I think, you know, that's I think goes for all of life. It's like, do you feel that there's energy and care and love being put into the idea? And you always feel that in Buffalo.
Well, thank you, Max. We knew that we could not talk about the Town Ballroom without talking to Max from Arkells.
Thank you. Well, thanks so much for having me.
It's always great to catch up with Max from the Arkells. But how do you really judge a great musical venue? You talk to someone who's actually attended shows there. So to wrap up this episode of Hear Here, I sit down with superfan Jim Lemoy.
So, Jim, when I asked Donnie and Artie who a Town Ballroom fan, their favorite fan, superfan would be, your name came up right away. What makes this venue so special to you?
Well, first of all, that's very flattering. But the venue itself, it's beautiful. It's got history, as you could see right around here. Mm-hmm. It really is the best venue in Buffalo in terms of the sound. There's not a bad seat in the house. You have sight lines from anywhere you're standing in the back concert venue. Mm-hmm. The front bar, there's a large area for people to come if they want to have a drink and talk with their friends, so they don't bother people that are there, you know, listening to the music. Artie and Donny have created a really safe environment for people to enjoy the music, and the staff here is second to none. From the bartenders to the security to the box office, they really are just amazing professional people.
Speaking of security, you were going to so many shows. You were coming to so many shows here at Town Ballroom. One of the security guys said, "Hey, why don't you become a VIP?"
Yes, Art at the door. I'd been coming to a lot of shows, and he said, "Listen, you're here every night. Why don't you just go buy the VIP?" What is this VIP you speak of? And that was when and I had known Artie and Donny. I'd been introduced to them sometime in the mid-2000s, and I just got to talk with them, and they hooked me up with the VIP. I've been a VIP here since 2013, and in that time, I've been to over 400 shows here, plus any live shows that they've promoted at other places, but 400 here. I'm an analyst, so I keep spreadsheets for like half the things in my life. So I have spreadsheets of like every show they've put on for the past 11 years.
What are some of your favorite shows that you've seen here?
It's funny because Gary Newman in 2017 to me was just the best all around show, from his stage show, his performance, the fact that it was my first time seeing him, even though I've wanted to see him for decades. But then I walked in and I looked up at the wall at the various plaques they have for the different bands. And then I remembered I saw Bauhaus here in 2006. So I have to say that those two shows are my two favorites, and I can't break that tie.
Yeah.
The Tea Party is my favorite band to see here.
Yeah.
Because they're probably my top two favorite bands.
It's funny because Donny predicted that you would say Tea Party.
If they could do a 5-night stand, I'd be here every night.
What is the vibe at the shows here? If you had to explain the vibe of Town Ballroom.
The vibe at Town Ballroom is everybody's here to have a good time. Everybody's got a smile on their face. And of course, part of that is the environment that's created here. and the fans and the types of bands they book. Number one, the venue is right in the heart of the city. If you're making an evening out of it, you have plenty of places to go to have dinner and then come to the show.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, there are plenty of, once the venue shuts down, you have plenty of places you can walk to continue the evening, and have a couple of drinks, have a nightcap. And again, I travel for a lot of shows as well. I'll go to Cleveland, I'll go to California, Florida, North Carolina, just to see shows for bands that might not be coming to the Northeast. The sound here is second to none of those venues that I've been to. It really is the best venue that I have been to for concerts.
Thank you so much, Jim, for sharing your experience. I know I have seen you at shows. When you walked in, I said, I've seen him at shows. And I look forward to seeing you at more shows here at Town Ballroom.
Thank you very much. Me too.
Thank you.
That wraps up this episode of Hear Here. Town Ballroom clearly has a rich history and is just one of so many venues in the fabric of Buffalo's music scene. I want to thank Town Ballroom owners Artie Kwitchoff and Donny Kutzbach of Funtime Presents, Max Kerman, lead singer of the Arkells, and superfan Jim Lemoy for joining me. Hear Here is a production of Buffalo Toronto Public Media for Visit Buffalo Niagara. Be sure to check out more episodes of Hear Here on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Bentley. Thanks for listening.